Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda.
Hello, welcome. My name is Rupanuga. Welcome to A Transcendent Paradigm. Paradigm means a model, an example of a model or a pattern. Transcendent means to go beyond that. So our purpose is to go beyond the model now offered by society as a way of life, as a way of values. In order to make that transcendent move, we have to go back in time to the science of transcendence, first originating in written form, 3000 BC. It happened at a meeting in India, in Uttar Pradesh, in the north of India, near the city of Lucknow, which is about 80 miles from the forest of Naimisharanya. At this forest, all the great sages of the time were having a meeting. They had foreseen that in the future, a few thousand years from then, there was going to be a time of great hypocrisy, quarrel, and strife. That there would be epidemics, that there would be great wars, there would be great dictatorships and exploitation of the masses of people. They wanted to counteract that. They wanted to leave posterity a message that would give them peace of mind. The great hallmark of these sages was that they cared as much about others' welfare as their own, if not more. So they had begun a sacrifice. At that moment, another great sage whom they all recognized appeared on the scene. His name was Sutta Goswami. And they decided to ask him the questions that would summarize all the known spiritual knowledge of the day, which was a tremendous amount. He had just been to a meeting at which all the recordings were made of the speeches, because you see, at that time, Sanskrit was the spoken language, and Sanskrit was then recording. It was in a written form, so all it could be recorded, transcribed for the future. So they wanted him to explain to them what had been acknowledged and concluded at the previous meeting. So the first question they asked him was, can you summarize, can you give the essence of all spiritual knowledge in such a way that the people in the future will be able to understand it and take it into their private lives? So the conversation began. And that's, we will take up the first question. The first answer was the secrets that came out later of this meeting, not until 1965, 5,000 years later. All this information came out of India for the first time to the rest of the world. How did that happen? How did that work? How was it passed down so that we have it now? There was a line of disciples, disciple one after disciple, one after another disciple, disciple after disciple, called a disciplic succession. And they took all this recorded knowledge and passed it down, and they all took a vow. The vow was not to change the meaning. Now, all this information was transcribed into verses or texts which is called sutra in Sanskrit. Sutra means codes. So these codes were passed down one after another, century after century after century, with no change. The disciples were allowed to make commentaries or purports, but they kept the vow not to change the meaning. Then the last person in that line in the modern age, his name is Prabhupada. And Prabhupada's assignment, his duty, was to bring all of these things outside of India to the rest of the world for the first time. All of these secrets had been locked up for 5,000 years. Now, there were other translations of the same sutras or codes. They were made by many persons in the Western world and even philosophers and scholars in India. They did not understand how to decipher the codes. They couldn't decode below the meaning of the grammar. Everyone was quite good with the grammar and the punctuation, but when it came to the meaning, they couldn't decode it. So, for example, there were 460 some translations of one of the books of information, the Bhagavad Gita. But nothing happened because the persons who translated it could not decipher the real deeper meaning of the texts. And so they speculated using the grammar. And they put their own ideas forward. And they used some of these, they used Bhagavad Gita, for example, as a means for their own philosophy. So nothing happened. Until 1965, when the Bhagavad Gita, as it is, as well as all the other literatures, came with Prabhupada out of India to the West. And we're going to examine the conclusions of these literatures and how they apply to us today in our daily lives. Thank you.